name's Michelle Carpenter. I teach in the marketing department at ODU. I've been teaching for 2 years, and to be honest, I was a little intimidated when I was asked to speak on this panel for obvious reasons. I have not been in the classroom as long as you have. I did teach at CNU 3 years prior to coming to ODU. I teach public relations, I teach internet marketing, and I teach the Gateway marketing class, Marketing 311 here at ODU. I thought long and hard about some of the things that I wanted to share with you, and I didn't want to leave anything out, so I actually made a list, a detailed list, and I looked through some of the things that my evaluations said that I was doing right. I also talked with some of my senior marketing students this past semester and got some feedback from them as well, and so that's what I'm going to be sharing with you. And my hope is if you just take one thing, then I've done my job today. I've got 10 tips, and we'll kind of go through them one by one. So you can see my first tip is don't let the technology get in the way of the class. I think this is something as instructors, professors, we all struggle with in the classroom, how to use the technology but not to have it actually run the class. And I think I've come up with a good solution in the classroom, at least my students say that it's a good solution. So what I do is I do use PowerPoint in the classroom, but I just project it on the board. I do not pull down the screen. This offers me the opportunity of writing on my notes, writing off to the side. I provide a bare bones PowerPoint, so there's not a whole lot of information on it, but it does have key things that I'm going to be discussing during the lecture. It also brings in any diagrams that I discuss that are in the text. And I really make it as a shell, so it really serves as a shell or an outline for what I will be discussing, and it very much matches what I'll be discussing during the topic of the course for that particular day. So I found that to be very helpful. I've also found it very helpful because the students tell me that they like coming to my class because they really have to come to class in order to get the notes, or at least they do need to come to have a good friend, right, to get the notes for them. The diagrams also, I take the same tact. I project the diagrams and I will write off to the side, and the students will print out those diagrams. As they come to my classes, they realize they want to have a big copy of the diagrams so they can write off to the side along with me the things that I say. Tip number 2, and this kind of coincides with some of your comments at the beginning, I really view this as kind of the beginning of how to kind of set the tone for the course. I'm currently teaching public relations summer 1 term. And this was a challenge for me because it was the first time I had taught it in the summer, first time I had taught it in a 3.5-hour session, and it's really intense. There's a lot of information that you have to pull through, as I'm sure for any of you, in a 5-week session, and I'm just learning that myself. What did I do? Well, I try to let them realize that when you come to class, what I'm teaching you really is important and meaningful for your future career. Well, how are some ways that you can actually do that? These are just my ways. Maybe you can relate this to your industry because this really applies to marketing, but I figured if I provided the examples for marketing, you could kind of then think about your industry. So what I did the first night of class when I started talking about public relations is the very first thing I did is I brought up the U.S. Bureau of Statistics because I knew that I had several marketing majors and marketing minors that were in the class, and I said, this is how many public relations practitioners there are in the field. And it really opened their eyes. They saw how many there were in the United States, they saw how many there were in China, they saw how many there were elsewhere as well. So I did that. I also talk about associations that are important within the industry. So I talked about PRSA, which, Public Relations Society of America, the leading industry for us. I also talked about IABC. In my marketing classes, I always talk about AMA, the American Marketing Association. So I think if you can talk about these associations, it really does help the students. I also kind of tell them a little bit about what they can expect in terms of pay. I pulled some numbers from various sources, and that was enlightening for the students because they have some expectations. Okay, if I go into this area or I go into this area of public relations, I have an idea of what it is that I'll actually be making. Also, don't forget the resources in your college. I'm sure that all of you have different resources, and I'm not aware of what those are, but I do know that in the business school we have an excellent career management center, and I use it. I direct students to it. I tell them about internships as they come up. I pass internships along. to that center as well. Tip number 3, and I think the students hit on this very well, be responsive. I think it's so important to be responsive to the students. I make it my policy to answer all emails within 24 hours, and generally I answer them even before that. I'm probably on more than I should be, but I enjoy talking to the students. And even if I can't answer their question completely, I'll at least let them know, hey, I received your email. I need to give that some more thought, or I need to talk to someone. So I at least let them know I'm following up on it. I think that's very, very important to students. And they're so used to that quick reply. So we have to remember that, I think, because we're not used to as quick of a reply, but they certainly are, right? Because they're on Facebook and all sorts of other social networking sites. Tip number 4, I think this is important too, and I think all of us can do this. I try to do this as much as I can. Use current cutting-edge resources in the classroom. All of you are engaged in research in your specific area. Pull some of that research into the classroom. Students love to know what it is that you're doing. I learned this one time when I was teaching a night class. I think it was 2 semesters ago. My students found out that I was going to be presenting for the first time at the Direct Marketing Association conference, and they're like, oh, tell us a little bit about your conference. And I was like, well, I'll tell you when I come back. I'll let you know how it goes. And I happened to have a copy of it on the stick, and they actually asked during the break if I would show the presentation, and I did. And I think that was very enlightening for them and very interesting for them. But there's lots of other things that you can do as well. Guest speakers. I always enjoyed them as a student in the classroom. I always have a guest speaker come and speak one time in all of my classes. I have found you can get great experts from your professional association. I get them from the American Marketing Association with folks that I interact with. I also get them with ODU alums. They're a perfect source. I have this alum that graduated from 2004, and she's in the social media field. Students are interested in social media because it relates very well to public relations. It relates very well to internet marketing. I brought her in 2 different classes, and the students have just been amazed by some of the things that she's shown that she's actually doing out in the field. So I think that's important. Sharing special reports within your industry. There's all sorts of reports out there. I know for the basic marketing class, I use Kantar Media when I talk about advertising, and I actually pull in the different advertising reports that they do on a quarterly basis. Many case studies that you develop by reaching out to industry experts. At one time, I have been asked to serve on a panel focus group for Harris Teeter, and I had remembered that. This was before I actually went into teaching. And then as I was getting ready, oh no, I guess I need to hurry it up a little bit. I didn't know how long it would take me to get through this. But anyway, I'll just say in a nutshell, I shared that with my students, and they found that very enlightening as well. Keeping abreast of key trends, and you can see what I noted up there. Course tools, I have a whole website development content analysis tool that we use in internet marketing. We use it to evaluate websites out there. Tip number 5, examples. I do not believe that you cannot give enough examples in a class. I feel like I give an example for everything. However, I was amazed when I look at my evaluations the last time. I actually had a person that said more examples, please. And I thought, what? How is this possible? But you can see I've noted some different examples here. Anytime I'm talking about something, I try to bring that in, and especially that last point. In Marketing 311, when we talk about consumer sales promotions, I actually bring in a whole bag of different sales promotions. I bring in coupons. I bring in samples. You can do this with a Teletechnet course too. The blue pad, you can actually stick the item right on the blue pad. The Teletechnet students really enjoyed it. Tip number 6. Incorporate visuals wherever possible. They say that a picture is worth 1,000 words. Here are some excellent ideas. Publisher videos. I just use one video in my Marketing 311 class, but it's excellent. It's a video that Hasbro does. They talk about the logistics. They talk about supply chain management. They talk about marketing systems. Students love it. It relates directly to the material that we're discussing. It reinforces some tougher concepts for marketing students, I believe, in the classroom. You can see I've noted news sources. In my public relations class, we talk about the consumer market. They are very interested, of course, in the millennial market and the Generation Z market. So I've used actual tidbits from the Today Show to illustrate what it is that these markets are all about. YouTube for advertising strategies. You can show Super Bowl commercials. You can show all sorts of other commercials, and I illustrate the difference between a slice of life appeal and other types of appeals that are out there. Tip number 7, projects. I know that there's pluses and minuses to projects out there, but I have found that it really does help with experiential learning. Students really do apply what it is that you're doing in class. So you can see I'll just leave that up there because I know I'm really running out of time. Tip number 8, provide feedback on projects. I think this is very important. I provide a detailed sheet for my students up front at the very beginning of the semester of how it is that I will evaluate their project. I also include sticky notes inside the project. This time with my Teletechnet course, I was a little challenged. I thought, well, how can I share this with everyone? I actually went and I scanned in all of the comments and I emailed that out to all the team members. That way they had access to all the comments that were made on the project regarding their project. Tip number 9, provide a broad-based study guide. I think this is important as well. I know some instructors don't do it for whatever reason. I do not spoon feed my students, but I do provide them some ideas of things that I think are important, and some of those things likely are liable to be on the exam as major topics, but there's other things as well, but at least it gives them a starting point. Tip number 10, interactivity. I provided lots of ways that you can be interactive. It doesn't matter whether you have a class of 25, which I had in the spring, or a class of 135, which I also had in the spring. These are some of the things that I've used in the classroom. I found them very helpful. Do call on students from Teletechnet sites. I think it's very helpful. Do many exercises. I do that because they're already in teams. I ask them to work on little team things. Short articles for reflection, like with public relations, studying the evolution of public relations. I have them get into their little teams and they discuss the article first, then we do a group share. They're more willing to share that way. They're not as nervous about it. Many workshops, I think that's important. Last class in public relations, we did the problem statement. I let them brainstorm for 5 minutes in their teams. They shared the problem statements and then we critiqued and evaluated them as a class as a whole. Bonus tip, and I think this is really the most important, and the students said this is so important. Be passionate about what you teach. And this is a direct quote from one of my students. They said, put some love into your teaching and then they will love you back for it. This is absolutely true. If you do nothing else, be passionate about what you teach. Be excited about it in the classroom. The students really will appreciate it, and they've said that just as much. I know I've run out of time, so if you have any questions, you definitely can send me an email. I hope that I've shared something that is of help to you in the classroom. Thank you very much.